Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nancy Drain, and I'm the Executive Director of the DC Access to Justice Commission, but more importantly, a proud member of the DC Pro Bono Week Planning Committee. Thanks so much to the Washington Council of Lawyers for its leadership in planning this week of events and activities, and we'll share more about that later. And special thanks go to WCL Executive Director Nancy Lopez and Legal Aid Sylvia Soltis for their partnership in planning this event today. This fourth annual event is both a celebration of our legal community's pro bono efforts and a call to action to do more to serve our district neighbors. Thank you all so much for being here. Don't forget to put your name and affiliation in the chat. Our panelists will also keep an eye on the chat to answer any questions there as time allows. Anything we don't get to, we will try to address in a communication after the event. We will begin the program today with our local chief judges, Judge Aida Blackburne-Rigsby and Judge Aida Josey-Herring. Both have consistently championed access to justice and pro bono engagement, and recently penned an inspiring op-ed in the Washington Post with DC Bar President Chad Sarchio, emphasizing the importance of pro bono participation as a strategy to meet the eviction crisis. We thank them so much for their leadership. Judge Blackburne-Rigsby, we will first welcome you for some remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here for the fourth annual Pro Bono Goes Local kickoff. And I'm so excited that I've had the honor and privilege to participate in all of them since they began. This is so important. I often have said, and many of you may have heard me say this before, that I sometimes feel like I'm preaching to the choir, as my grandmother used to say, to those people who already know how important pro bono service is. But I think it's worth repeating, which is why we're all here today and look forward to hearing firsthand how important pro bono work is. We have lived through these last 18 months, what I call twin pandemics. The pandemic sparked by the coronavirus, coronavirus and COVID-19, but also the pandemic of the racial unrest and the resurgence of racial unrest in our country, sparked last summer by the death of George Floyd. And what we see is these twin pandemics have exposed fault lines that we've already known have existed in our community, around our country, and around our world, along the lines of poverty, income, language access, and race. And these things converge together to make pro bono more urgent, more needed, and more necessary now than ever. You've seen and heard some of the statistics about the increase in domestic violence, for example, during the pandemic. We have a looming crisis pending with the end of the moratorium on evictions, and many unrepresented people who are trying to navigate our courts and other critical legal issues surrounding their health, their safety, their homes, their children, their families, without lawyers. And at the same time, we have you, the largest unified bar in the country, the largest concentration of top-notch lawyers anywhere in this country and in this world, who are already committed to pro bono, yet we're asking more of you. We're asking you to spread the word to your friends and colleagues and coworkers, because many people who are suffering right now, sometimes they don't even recognize that their problem is a legal problem that you can help them with by helping explain a contract, helping them fill out an application, handling their case in Superior Court, or handling their appeal. We now have more than 50% of litigants in the Court of Appeals appearing without counsel. So we need you. This is important now more than ever. I want to thank our organizers, Nancy Lopez from the Washington Council of Lawyers, Nancy Drain from the Access to Justice Commission, and Sylvia Soltis from the Legal Aid Society. And I want to thank the many lawyers joining us today. Please keep up the good work and dig deep to do more, because so much more is needed. This justice gap is real, and we see it every day in our local courts. Thank you. And I also want to thank my partner, Chief Judge Josey-Herring, Chief Judge of the DC Court of Appeals, for all that she has done. And as you know, I've had the pleasure of serving on our Access to Justice Commission and on the Washington Council of Lawyers. Keep up the good work that you all continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judge. Your perspective on these issues is so important, and it's so critical to hear from the courts about the need that you're seeing every day. So thank you so much. Next, I'd like to turn the program to Judge Josey-Herring, who will add her own welcoming remarks for the event.
Okay, I want to say good afternoon to all of you. It is so great, really, to have an opportunity to speak with you and to celebrate continued anniversaries of pro bono in the District of Columbia and pro bono going local. And it is critically important, as is demonstrated by the fact of this celebration and certainly the remarks of Chief Judge Blackburne-Rigsby. And I'm sure all of the panelists you'll hear from today, to constantly remind ourselves how lucky we are in the District of Columbia to have so many members of the bar who are willing to step up to help people in need. As was indicated by my colleague and friend, Chief Judge Blackburne-Rigsby of the Court of Appeals, we have an even greater need right now. In fact, it's a critical time due to the pandemic, but it was really critical before then, but even more so now. We have so many issues facing residents of the District of Columbia involving debt collection, landlord and tenant matters, small claims matters, domestic violence, domestic relations and child custody, and other critical issues across our system that individuals who are self-represented will need help with. You've helped them in the past, and you quite frankly have contributed much of your time. You've been very generous, but we are tapping you more and more as we all work together, and we are in this together, trying to make sure that justice is achieved and that there's access for people who would not otherwise have it, without very thoughtful approaches and conversations that are happening between the bar, the court, and the community. And so we want to celebrate you. The court applauds you, that is, members of the bar, for all of the service that you've provided. And we know that you will continually meet the challenge that we face here in the District of Columbia. And we look forward really to working with you to be even more creative about seeing how we can make access to justice real for our neighbors here in the District of Columbia and our community. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Chief Judge Josey-Herring. And it's just so wonderful to have such passionate leaders in our judiciary. So we're so grateful to the both of you. And one of the things that you said really resonated with me, and that's this idea that we did face a civil justice crisis before the pandemic, but that crisis has become all the more urgent. And many of you know that in the wake of the pandemic, the commission, along with other leaders of our legal community, came together to develop a campaign called DC Represents, which was an opportunity to really challenge our law firms and our other institutions like law schools and even government institutions to do more pro bono, but to really center those pro bono efforts on serving our district neighbors in areas of critical need that were continuing to emerge during the pandemic. And so today we wanted to highlight one of those law firm leaders who committed through the DC Represents campaign. We have close to 40 organizations who have done so. But today we'll be joined by the DLA DC office managing partner, Edward Smitty Smith, who will talk to us about his firm's commitment to local pro bono through DC Represents. So Smitty, I'm so happy to have you here and turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And then thank you also to Nancy Lopez and the Washington Council of Lawyers and the DC Access to Justice Commission for hosting this wonderful event. I am honored to join this important kickoff to DC Pro Bono Week, and particularly honored to follow Chief Judges Blackburne-Rigsby and Josey-Herring. As a native Washingtonian with an overabundance of pride in its city and its people, I'm deeply grateful for your service and privileged to have such extraordinary leaders in our community who are so committed to promoting pro bono and equal access to justice for all in our city. I'm happy to be here with everyone today and share how important it is for all of us as leaders, and especially leaders at law firms, to support and encourage pro bono service. And pro bono service locally for our neighbors, being part of this community and providing legal care for those who live here in our city. DLA Piper is an international law firm. It touches nearly every corner of the globe, but we never lose sight of our roots and the communities to which we belong. So at DLA, we intentionally focus many of our pro bono efforts on helping DC residents because people we help here in DC are our friends, they're our neighbors. We work side by side together. Our children go to school together. We break bread together. We worship together. So we have a personal stake in DC, and this is where we want to invest. We intentionally take on pro bono matters in various areas of poverty law to help those who would otherwise go without legal care because they cannot afford a lawyer. This is a strategic priority for DLA Piper. And we know that for many, the difference between having a lawyer and not receiving legal help can be the difference between staying in your home and homelessness, or getting desperately needed benefits to feed your family, or hunger, or obtaining a restraining order to feel safe, or remaining in danger. And so pro bono truly makes a difference in people's lives in direct, palpable, sometimes beautiful ways that are rarely seen in other areas of the law. And we also know, as has been pointed out, that the pandemic has only exacerbated the legal needs in our community. And in many areas, this need has increased exponentially. DC represents, which Nancy just mentioned, challenges all of us as lawyers, leaders, representatives of some of the city's most prominent and powerful institutions to enhance our existing pro bono commitments to confront the growing legal needs in the district. So through this campaign, we've been asked to commit to ways we can expand our pro bono efforts. Over 30 law firms, law schools, the U.S. Department of Justice's pro bono program, and DC government as well, along with about 24 legal services organizations have signed on as participants in this initiative. This is an important commitment to use our talents and our resources to care for each other here in our city. So you will soon hear about many of the legal needs in our communities and ways you can help from several of the extraordinary legal services providers that are joining us here today. I've known some of them for many years. They are the real heroes that are working tirelessly to help, but it's on us to find better ways to help them. So I'll just highlight one example of how DLA Piper has increased its pro bono service to DC residents. For over a year, a team of DLA Piper lawyers has been staffing the DC Pro Bono Center's Landlord Tenant Resource Center remotely, providing legal information to unrepresented tenants and landlords who have residential housing disputes. And particularly in a time like this, in a time of pandemic, this type of representation is essential when we couldn't leave our homes to make sure that people were actually able to stay and not be pushed into homelessness. So this opportunity has been a great way for our lawyers to help DC residents with real problems. For many of our attorneys also to learn more about the growing housing crisis in our city. But I can tell you, I know from personal experience that law practice provides few moments as gratifying as looking a client in the eye and telling them that they still have a home for their family. So we are grateful for DC Bar Pro Bono Center for welcoming us as part of their team, and the other firms that have been committed and pushing and working hard at this alongside us, and to also all of the legal service providers with whom we work. So as OMP of our DC office here at DLA, I know how special the pro bono bono culture is among the private bar in our city. And as wonderful as it is, we know that we must and we can, but it is imperative that we do more during this time of unprecedented need. I encourage everyone to become part of the DC Represents Initiative and to demonstrate how we as a profession value pro bono as an integrated part of our business and what we do and what make us lawyers and the things that we value and we hold dear. So thank you for your time, all of you, for all you've already done, what you're doing, but most importantly, thank you for what you will do for those who need our help the most.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Smitty, for those inspiring and really personal reflections on why helping and serving alongside our neighbors is so important at this time. And we know that you are representative of that pro bono culture that we know exists here in DC, with so many of your peer law firms really stepping up to help our district neighbors. So thank you so much for those reflections. Next, we're going to turn to some of those legal services providers that Smitty talked about. And we really wanted this event to both celebrate pro bono and emphasize how important it is, but also to give you practical information about needs on the ground and where you can make a difference. And so we invited 6 legal services leaders to provide some very short reflections on the current needs in their area of practice and to identify ways pro bono attorneys can get involved. And we gave them a very unreasonable challenge to do that in about 5 minutes each. So we are so grateful to them for taking us up on that challenge and to sharing their thoughts with us. So we'll first start with Lauren King. Lauren is with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, and we'll talk about housing related needs in our community. So Lauren, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much to Nancy, and Sylvia for having the DC Bar Pro Bono Center on this panel. I am Lauren King. I'm the Housing Initiative Attorney with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, and I am going to use my 5 minutes to talk to you about some emerging issues and emerging legal needs, record sealing, and opportunities for training. So the first thing I want to talk about is the end of the moratorium on evictions. So as I'm sure a lot of you know, for about 18 months, there was a moratorium on both actual evictions and eviction filings. That is coming to an end now. So in cases where a landlord obtained a judgment before the public health emergency started, those cases have been able to proceed to an eviction. Landlords were able to file non-payment of rent cases starting on October 12th. So cases are ramping up again, and there is definitely need for pro bono attorneys to represent people facing eviction. Another really key thing is that when evictions first started, we had funds from the federal government for emergency rental assistance programs. One of the big ones was Stay DC. The Stay DC program is actually closing its portal on October 27th because we have utilized the majority of those funds. So the landscape is going to change drastically on what it means to represent someone facing eviction. When we had those federal funds, it was, very rare to be able to get emergency rental assistance for that many clients. And now that the portal is closing, we're going to need a lot of attorneys who are able to put on creative legal arguments, who are able to arrange payment plans, who are able to help clients with these cases, assert defenses, et cetera. So that's one huge need that's going to be coming up here is with the close of Stay DC's portal, and we're hoping that maybe there'll be more funds, but there's no guarantee. We're going to need a lot of lawyers to help folks who have fallen behind during the pandemic and are going to need lawyers. Another program that we're doing that's really near and dear to my heart is our record sealing project for eviction cases. So before the public health emergency, there was really no legal mechanism for sealing old eviction records, but the DC Council passed a law in November of 2020 that allows tenants to file motions to seal old eviction records. This law was actually extended by the council on October 8th, and we're anticipating mayoral signature any day now. This law is so important because a recent study by Georgetown's McCourt School of Public Policy found that landlords look at eviction case records negatively regardless of the outcome of the case. So even in cases where tenants won their case or the case was dismissed, when a prospective landlord sees that a case was filed against that person, they have a negative view of that tenant and their fitness to rent the available unit. So it's so important to be able to clear off these eviction records from people's rental histories so that they're able to afford one of the elusive affordable units in DC. DC faces an affordable housing crisis right now, and the presence of a rental record is just one more barrier to being able to rent a safe and habitable unit for someone in their family. Since I have such limited time, after my remarks, I am going to be dropping some links in the chat. One is to that Georgetown McCourt School of Public Policy study on eviction records that I find really, really fascinating and is a real call to action to help folks with that particular issue. And the last thing I want to talk about is our bread and butter at the Pro Bono Center, training. So we have a lot of training opportunities available to interested pro bono attorneys. I am going to drop some links in the chat to where you can look at current training opportunities we have, how to get involved. Right now, ongoing is our 5-part landlord-tenant training series, which goes from the very most basics of like, where is the landlord-tenant courthouse, all the way to what a landlord-tenant jury trial would look like. And we record all of those trainings so that people will have the opportunity to watch them, even if they weren't available when the training was occurring, or they just didn't know it was occurring at all. So I'm going to drop links in the chat to that. I'm also going to drop a link where if you have questions about our trainings, you can contact our professionals who are in charge of our training programs. And if you already have access to probono.net/DC, if you're a current volunteer, we have a library that has all of our trainings available there as well, including a training on record sealing if that's something that has sparked your interest. So I see that I have about 24 seconds left. So I'm just going to thank Nancy, and Sylvia again for allowing me to be a part of this presentation. I'm really excited about, oh, thank you, Christina, for putting that in the chat. I'm really excited about Pro Bono. I'm really excited to get people involved. I'm also going to drop my email address in the chat. If you have any questions or you just want to chat about record sealing or eviction cases, I am your girl. And with that, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Oh, Lauren, thank you so much. And you packed a lot of information in your 5 minutes. Super impressed. So thank you very much. And I suspect I'm going to repeat myself, but just have to say and remark on the remarkable work that our eviction legal services providers, there's 6 core organizations, have done during the pandemic to come together, to collaborate, to affirmatively reach out to district residents and tenants in need. And, I hope that all of you find time to add to those incredible efforts and to add your time and volunteerism to that. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to Aida Vindell. She is with DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, and she will talk about needs in the domestic violence area.
Thank you, Nancy. Hi, everyone. My name is Aida Vindell, and I am the co-legal director at DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, and I'm very excited to be here talking with everyone today. First, I want to talk a little bit about DC Volunteer Lawyers Project. We are a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2008 with only 3 attorneys. And as of 2020, last year, we had 450 active volunteers. We were able to provide brief legal services, representation, and advice in court and at our walk-in clinics to over 2,100 clients last year in 2020. So we're very proud of that. At DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, we train pro bono attorneys to represent clients in their civil protection order matters, custody matters, and divorce proceedings. We also have other practices like our child advocacy practice, where we represent vulnerable children as guardian ad litem in custody matters as well. We also have an immigration practice. So I want to talk to you today about our domestic violence practice. I want to talk to you first about what is new in our practice. So recently, in April of 2021, there was an amendment that made to the Intrafamily Offense Act, as well as an Anti-Stalking Order Act that came out. We are really excited about some of the new provisions that came out, which was that gave the opportunity for petitioners to ask for more than a 1-year civil protection order. Now petitioners are able to request that 2-year civil protection order, as well as extensions can also be extended for more than 1 year. This is huge for a lot of our clients because they don't have to come back every year to extend that civil protection order, and instead they can get a longer protection order for longer stability in their life. Other things that have become new, as far as many of you all have experienced it, and that is practicing in this virtual world. Our pro bono attorneys are trained on being able to share evidence through screen share on the computer, videos, and also we are training them on how to work through this pandemic. As you know, everyone before, we used to all really value meeting face-to-face with clients, and it was a huge transition to change now to giving brief advice, to prepping for a trial, all over the phone sometimes. So we are training our pro bono attorneys to do that and also provide that access to our clients. We still have many clients who don't have access to smartphones, who don't have access to tablets that they can participate in hearings. So at DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, we have a variety of ways that we can provide that access to survivors of domestic violence. The DC Superior Court also has remote sites where litigants can go and actually participate in their hearings using a computer at one of these sites. We also have the ability at some of our conference rooms to be able to provide areas where clients can come and use some of our devices in a safe manner. And so those are some of the ways that we have changed our practice. Procedures have changed a lot. Of course, we're doing remote trials. There's remote filing, remote brief advice, and even prep for litigation. So all of that has really changed, and I'm really proud of the work that we are doing to be able to provide that support to so many pro bono attorneys to be able to help survivors get that civil protection order. Special needs in light of COVID, there's so many. We need pro bono attorneys to help us connect survivors to what they need to get their protection orders. There are so many pro se clients who continue to have difficulties logging on or understanding just how things work in this virtual world. And there are also novel issues that have come up as a result of the pandemic. As you all can imagine, parents are having to decide how they will follow COVID protocols regarding vaccines, in-school learning versus virtual learning, and how parents will expose their children to maybe other people who aren't vaccinated. So there are so many things that sometimes, especially having to navigate that with a non-custodial parent who has been abusive to you or has intimidated you in the past, it's hard to make those decisions with someone when you're scared to talk to them. And so our pro bono lawyers have been that go-between person who can help them come to a middle ground, and if not, help them file emergency motions and represent them at trial. So that's why it's really important that we get more of you all helping us help other people. And lastly, I just want to talk about ways that you can, I'm sorry, that's my dog, ways that you can involved with DC Volunteer Lawyers Project. So all of our trainings are virtual. We have them online. You can either attend one of our trainings on a set date, or if you can't attend that training, we can send you the video and you can do it on your own time. Once you complete the training, then we will connect you with a survivor of domestic violence who needs representation in any of the practices that I talked about. And I can share the link in the chat after this. But thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you all feel motivated to continue to volunteer time.
Thank you so much, Aida. And I feel like it wouldn't be a Zoom meeting unless there was a dog or a child that somehow made its presence known. So, so nice to see a little glimpse into your life. You know, and your remarks really reminded me of a moment when we were planning DC Represents, where your colleague Sarah Tenen talked about the real really being overwhelmed with the number of clients that needed help. And in real time, you know, several of the law firm folks who were just present in this meeting said, well, we're going to figure out how to help you. And so, you know, just bridging those communities and identifying needs and finding ways to mobilize. That's certainly what this event is about, and what's so special about our community. So thank you so much. Next, we're going to turn the program over to AJ Huber. AJ is with SEDEC DC, and he is going to talk about some consumer-related issues and needs in our community. So thanks so much for being here, AJ.
Hello, everyone. I'm AJ Huber. I'm a staff attorney at SEDEC DC, where I co-lead our pro bono program. Thank you to the Washington Council of Lawyers and all the organizers for this terrific event. SEDEC DC is a nonprofit public interest center, and we're headquartered at the UDC David A. Clark School of Law. And at SEDEC DC, our mission is to safeguard the legal rights and financial interests of DC residents facing debt-related problems. And we carry out this mission as anti-racism work, both because of the massive gaps in wealth that track race in DC, and because the business model of the private third-party debt collection industry involves companies that purchase debt for 1% to 2% of its face value and then sue thousands of people with disparate impacts from those mass lawsuits on African-American and Hispanic residents. These economic disparities and resulting wage loss and financial pressures have, for thousands of DC families, become more difficult during the pandemic. And so we really appreciate your considering focusing on these issues with your pro bono time. In support of our mission, we have 3 projects. We do direct legal services for DC residents with lower incomes in consumer debt cases, systemic policy work and reform, and community legal education, financial literacy trainings. Today, I'll focus on the first of those as part of our pro bono program, the direct legal services. I want to talk first about the current court operations post-moratorium in these cases. This is a particularly timely event for us because a month ago, the debt collection moratorium that had been in place throughout the pandemic since the spring of 2020 expired. And the DC Superior Court is now resuming debt collection cases and is scheduling initial hearings for Mondays and Tuesdays and mediations for Wednesdays and Thursdays. And I believe the first hearings are being scheduled for November 22nd. The court is giving parties at least 4 weeks notice for the initial hearings, and the mediations are scheduled at least 2 weeks after the initial hearing. I also want to talk a little bit about the debt collection legislation that recently passed. Under the emergency debt collection law now in effect, there are a number of notable new rights and rules for DC residents, or rights for residents and rules for debt collectors. The scope of the debt collection statute has been expanded to apply to all types of consumer debt, including medical debt. The protections against unfairness and harassment have been expanded. When the statute of limitations for a debt collection claim has expired, it cannot be revived by payment or other actions by the debtor. When a debt collector begins collecting a debt, it must offer to provide documents to the consumer substantiating the debt, and then provide those documents if requested. Before commencing a lawsuit to collect a consumer debt, the plaintiff must do a reasonable investigation to verify the defendant's current address for service of process. In an action initiated by a debt collector to collect a consumer debt, the statement of claim or complaint must attach a copy of the signed contract or other documents providing evidence of the consumer's liability. It must also include an itemization of principal, interest, and other fees or charges, information about prior transfers of the debt to new owners, and a statement that the suit is filed within the 3-year statute of limitations period. There are similar substantiation requirements for requests for summary judgment or default judgment, and non-compliance requires dismissal with prejudice. This new law also amends the private right of action to eliminate the requirement that violations be willful and to include statutory damages and attorney's fee shifting. It also restricts the amount of plaintiff's attorney's fees to 15% of the amount in controversy and makes it more difficult for plaintiffs to obtain civil arrest warrants against defendants for failing to appear at hearings. These changes were all passed as part of a temporary law and may be further modified. We're preparing for a DC Council hearing in late November on what the permanent law will be when that goes into effect in late February, when the current law expires. Meanwhile, all these important protections that I just discussed will only help consumers if they are enforced, and that's where pro bono volunteers can help. As the tidal wave of new debt collection cases is filed over the next year, we need volunteers to help us represent consumers in these many cases. Therefore, if you're interested in helping out, please reach out to me directly to sign up or to have an initial conversation about any questions you may have. You can also submit a form on SEDEC DC's website. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, AJ. And I think what you described really powerfully demonstrates the role of pro bono attorneys in, as you said, ensuring that that DC residents are treated fairly, and that the law and the requirements are followed, but also to try to equalize that power imbalance, negotiate favorable terms that will at least delay some of the or prevent some of the negative consequences that can flow from credit and other debt type issues. So just such a powerful role pro bono attorneys can play in these cases. So thank you so much for highlighting those, and of course all the work that you're doing. Next, we have Drake Hagner from the Legal Aid Society of the District of Columbia. Drake is going to talk a bit about unemployment and some other public benefits issues that would benefit from your support and help. So thanks, Drake, for being here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Drake Hagner from Legal Aid. I'm really happy to be here with so many talented colleagues and supporters and leaders from the DC pro bono community. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our public benefits practice during COVID. We've had some massive changes, and I'm really proud of what our team has been able to accomplish, and our pro bono colleagues have also been able to do in partnership with us. So typically, Legal Aid has a public benefits practice that covers a range of programs. We do Social Security disability, health law, including Medicaid eligibility, Part D, prescription drug counseling, and home health aid cases for people with disabilities or significant illnesses who need more support at home. We used to have about one attorney working on UI cases, and with the COVID crisis bringing a flood of those intakes to our door, we put together a cross-practice group. We affectionately call it our Team UI, or Team Unemployment Insurance. And it's between 50 and 20 attorneys who have been working around the clock for the past 18 months on behalf of jobless workers in DC. So I'm sure as many of you have seen in the news and know through your own conversations at work or with neighbors and friends, we've had this terrible unemployment crisis. And even worse, it has not hit all workers evenly, and the recovery is not helping all workers evenly. So unemployment benefits are really the backbone of the middle class. They are what keep people from falling into poverty if they don't have the kind of wealth and resources that allow someone to stay afloat on their own for a couple of weeks or months at a time in between jobs. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, we saw tens of thousands of people filing for benefits in DC. And there were significant barriers to people being able to secure those benefits, especially if you were limited English proficient, if you didn't have a home computer, and the unemployment office computers and all the DC Public Library computers were shut down and not available to you at that time. There were significant barriers for people who were not able, like me, to keep teleworking during this crisis. So Legal Aid sprung into action to help as many people as we can. The nature of our practice has shifted pretty dramatically, both in terms of the volume that I described to you. We've been able to help about 850 low-wage workers during this crisis. Also in the nature of our pro bono partnerships, we discovered that specialized partnerships with firms willing to build their internal expertise was really what we needed to be able to build capacity in this area. And we were able to refer dozens of cases to firms like Arnold and Porter, Covington, and Steptoe, and we're really grateful for those partners. Looking ahead, even though some of the benefits that were available to low-wage workers during the public health emergency have expired, we're continuing to get dozens of intakes every week from workers who are missing periods of back benefits, even people who are back to work. If they are owed $7,000 from DC, from the unemployment office, they're not able to pay the rest of their paid due mortgage or their rent or their car payments. There are significant collateral consequences for them in their lives of not having all those back benefits paid. Another common story we're hearing is people who've been terminated from their unemployment benefits without notice, which is not allowed under DC federal or due process law in the Constitution. So we are dealing with some systemic issues, trying to tackle those as best as we can with leadership at DOES, and we're in touch with them every single week, and also on the policy front, and of course using the courts as well. So how can you help? We definitely need help. We are continuing to face an absolute onslaught of public benefits matters. And unfortunately, we are seeing more and more SNAP terminations, TANF terminations, and soon to follow, we'll see people in the coming months start to lose their Medicaid benefits or home health aid coverage as the moratorium on those programs lifts as well. So what we need your help with is a lot of these bread and butter public benefits cases. Legal aid is able to refer out Social Security disability cases that have also only increased in volume and speed from before COVID. I've been doing public benefits practice for 10 years. I've never seen SSI cases and SSDI cases scheduled with such speed. So ironically, shifting from in-person to telephone hearings has allowed the agency to bring in judges from other jurisdictions, which means these hearings are happening a lot faster. Our client community has less access to their medical records and their treatments that they need to be able to prove disability. And we need more volunteers than ever before to take these kinds of cases so that we can continue to work on some of the systemic issues that are a little bit trickier. So again, very grateful to be here. Happy to be in touch during the lightning round or after this training. As I know, Legal Aid's website has some information as well for how to get in touch with us on volunteer opportunities. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Drake, for all of the incredible work and leadership you've done in the community over this time. And, I think that your remarks also, draw out one thing that I've always sort of understood about pro bono, that, sometimes it can be overwhelming, like, oh, I'm not a public benefits expert, or what do I know about unemployment compensation? But so much of pro bono work is just being an advocate by the side of that district neighbor who needs help, like ensuring that the correct documentation gets before the tribunal that's making decisions, identifying errors that were made in the past, and making sure that those errors are presented in the right way so that they can be corrected. And those advocacy skills are skills that all of us lawyers have. The wonderful folks at Legal Aid can tell you what you need to know about public benefits or unemployment, but it's really those sort of soft advocacy skills that are so critical and can make all the difference in representing an individual client. So thank you for drawing that out, Drake. Next, we have Jen Massey from Children's Law Center, and she will be talking about needs in the family law area. So thanks, Jen.
So much, Nancy. It's great to be here with everyone today. And I will definitely say, to start, I support everything you mentioned about those advocacy skills, because it makes a huge difference in pro bono. So no prior experience required in these areas. Folks will be supported volunteering across all the areas that we're hearing about today. I'm Jen Massey, the pro bono director at Children's Law Center, and we fight so each child in DC can grow up with a stable family, good health, and a quality education. And so while we work with pro bono volunteers in all of those areas, family, health, and education, today I'm going to focus on the family law need, but I'll drop my email address and a link to our website where you can learn more for anyone who's also interested in the housing conditions work and special education work that we do. The truth is that there's always been a strong need for pro bono assistance in family law cases in DC Superior Court. This is an area prior to the pandemic where 83 to 93% of litigants go unrepresented and cannot afford an attorney. Without counsel, this creates challenges for parties to navigate the court system successfully, and it creates challenges for the judges to make determinations about custody that are in a child or children's best interest. The reality, as you're hearing repeated today, is that the pandemic has only exacerbated these challenges. The clients that we serve, our DC resident neighbors, have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And so these added challenges have only heightened the existing stress that exist in a custody case when there are disputes around child visitation, custody. And again, the areas of need that you're hearing about today, these don't occur in a vacuum. So in a child custody case, the family may also be experiencing housing instability, concerns around benefits, immigration, domestic violence, you name it. And again, when you have a contested custody case, that's just adding to the stress when folks are trying to navigate these situations without counsel, trying to, of course, do their best to advocate about something they really care about, their family and the children in their lives. There's also been a huge increase in need and filing. So over the course of the pandemic, the number of new filings in domestic relations cases have only increased. And so in addition to the court managing an extensive backlog from when operations slowed down at the beginning of the pandemic and they were only hearing emergency matters, they're playing catch up to meet those cases that have backlogged, and then the new filings are up, new emergency filings are up. So the need has always been great, but it has certainly increased. And we've seen that steadily at Children's Law Center in a couple of different types of representation matters that we handle. So turning to those briefly, we represent, of course, there are parents, there are non-parent caregivers, and there are children that are involved in custody cases in DC Superior Court. We represent non-parent caregivers who are reaching out to us about securing legal orders and assistance navigating the court system regarding children in their care. Often they may be running into barriers to ensuring that they're getting financial benefits that they need, or medical insurance or care to ensure that the child in their care gets what they need. And doing this alone without an attorney can be just getting in the front door and learning how to file and getting your case before the court can be a barrier to achieving an outcome. And then in the guardian ad litem types of cases, this is where an attorney serves as a best interest lawyer representing the best interest of a child or children in a contested custody case. This is where judges send referrals directly to Children's Law Center asking for someone to serve in this capacity. Again, it can be really challenging for judges to assess in these cases what is in a child's best interest. And so a volunteer in these cases can do really critical fact investigations. They can work with the parties in many instances to help reduce conflict, streamline disputed issues, and hopefully reach a resolution that is in the best interest of the child and family. So the need here is great. The ability for volunteers to make a difference and assist with these conflicts is huge. And if you want to get involved, we have on-demand trainings, resources, training manuals, mentors, folks to guide you along the way. And again, I'll drop this information in the chat, and I'm happy to follow up with questions from anyone. We've had an amazing pro bono community in DC for all these years. So I thank all the existing volunteers for the very meaningful contributions that you've made for our DC neighbors. I encourage others to get involved locally as well. We do need you now just as much as ever, if not more. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen. And I know that, in particular, the court is so appreciative of pro bono attorneys who serve in these roles. So thanks for all you do to coordinate that. So last but not least, we have Irfana Anwar from Aida, and she will be discussing the needs of the district's immigrant community. So thanks so much for being with us, Irfana.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nancy, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for attending this event. And most importantly, thank you for your time and your commitment. It really is your partnership that allows us, all of us, to continue doing this work, amplifying our work. And thank you for the organizers for giving this platform to continue talking about our work. So my name is Irfana Anwar, and I am the pro bono managing attorney at Aida. So at Aida, we provide legal, social, and language services to low-income, vulnerable immigrant communities in the DMV area. And our pro bono program is a very important way that we actually do our immigration legal services that are based in humanitarian and family-based immigration proceedings. So the kind of clients that we continue to see, we're talking about asylum seekers. We have a lot of Afghan refugees who are hoping to start representing now through our programming. We are talking about victims of various forms of violence, including domestic violence, victims of trafficking, whether that's labor trafficking or sex trafficking. We represent children who are abused, abandoned, or neglected. And we also do a variety of family-based immigration law, allowing people to reunify with their family. And it's our pro bono work, our pro bono partners, where we can build capacity for pro bono partners to do more of this work and really amplify our work. And especially right now with the pandemic continuing and the legacy of the previous administration, which continues, that has really created a deep crisis in our immigrant communities where we need more lawyers to help. The backlogs are just profoundly long. And there was a period of time when people could not submit applications, and now they can, but it's still very difficult. So now more than ever, these are the areas of law that our immigrant community members are really suffering. So there are two main ways that you can get involved. In both of these ways at Aida, we've shifted and we are able to do this work through virtually obviously because of the ongoing pandemic. So first of all, to continue supporting us and building your capacity, you can become involved in our brief legal advice and referral clinics. We do these practically once a month. They're very low barrier setting clinics where anyone with an immigration question based in humanitarian or family law can call us and get clear-cut legal advice on where they stand right now and if they can do anything about it. And if they can't do it, if they have no eligibility, that's really important for our immigrant community members to know, because so many of them are getting taken advantage by unscrupulous immigration practitioners or notarios. So they can come, they can ask, they can leave with clear-cut information about where they stand and what they can do. And these clinics, we staff them with interpreters and with our mentors. So as volunteers, you don't need any previous immigration experience. As long as you're barred and good standing in any US jurisdiction, you can get involved. And it's a great way to really understand the needs of our communities, what people are going through, and being able to walk away from a clinic knowing that you've helped people understand where they stand and what they can do next. The other way you can get involved is actually by doing direct representation, taking on cases that are longer term. These are very meaningful moments for a lot of attorneys that work with us. You can get on our monthly case list where we send you opportunities, and there are several cases on our case list every month where you can choose from. And the most important thing is that you get assigned a mentor. So you're not alone in these cases. And the backbone of our pro bono program, the integrity and the backbone of our pro bono program really is our Aida mentors, who many of them have been at Aida for decades now and have developed an expertise, not just in immigration law, but how to actually represent clients who are vulnerable, who are immigrant, and who've been through trauma. And the relationship that our volunteer attorneys develop with their clients is meaningful, but also with the mentors. And every case that you complete, you're increasing the way that you're representing people, but also your understanding of our immigrant neighbors in need. So I can never talk enough about our mentors. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of becoming involved in our programming. So I think I'm just about done with my time, but again, this is an incredible moment for all of us to share with you. We're really grateful for your time and your commitment, and I'm happy to be in touch with anybody who wants to learn more about our programming. Thank you.
Ravana, thank you so much. And you sort of previewed what I was going to say just to end this portion of the program, which is, we know that pro bono couldn't happen without our legal services community. So I'm just so grateful for this impressive group who shared just some of the pro bono opportunities that are available in the district, but we'll be sharing more information with you about this and other ways to get involved. I'm going to now turn the program over to Nancy Lopez with the Washington Council of Lawyers, who will close us out. But again, just want to share my thanks for everyone for being here today. What a great program it's been. So thanks, Nancy.
Hello, everybody. And thank you so much to everybody. I am going to share a quick PowerPoint to help us through all of the things that are going on with DC Pro Bono Week. And I want to start by just saying thank you to everybody for being here and learning more about what opportunities are out there. Thank you to Chief Judge Anna Blackburn-Rigsby for your remarks, to Chief Judge Aida Josey-Herring for your remarks, and to Smitty Smith for telling us more about DC Represents and the ways that law firms and government agencies and others can get involved with helping to respond to the pro bono needs that are out there. DC Represents is a great program and you should learn more about it. Thank you to my collaborators on this program, Nancy Drain from the DC Access to Justice Commission, which is the home of DC Represents, and Sylvia Sotis from the Legal Aid Society of DC. Thanks also to all of our legal services communities. I absolutely adore this community. There are so many talented lawyers who are there and ready to help pro bono attorneys learn a new area of law and make a difference in people's lives. So to all of our lightning round speakers, thank you. It is really, truly an impressive group. Look for a follow-up email that will tell you more about ways to get involved, give you links to the organizations that were represented here today and other places that you can do Pro Bono Week. And I hope you will dive into doing pro bono. I hope you will also help us spread the word on social media. The hashtag is DC Pro Bono 21, and it would be fantastic to see DC Pro Bono 21 trending on Twitter and Pro Bono Week going viral. The events that are coming up that you can be a part of include an immigration consultation clinic, pro bono in a virtual age, coding justice, an expungement clinic, advancing environmental justice and climate change through pro bono initiatives, the coming eviction crisis and how we can help, a small business brief advice legal clinic, meeting our clients where they are, serving families east of the river, a Veterans Consortium legal muster pop-up clinics, Pro Bono Goes to School, closing the gap in public education. There are lots of different ways to get involved. You can also read pro bono profiles on our website, wclawyers.org, and that's where you can register for all of the programs, trainings, and events. Follow the conversation with us on social media with the hashtag. And then Pro Bono Week is the perfect time to become a member of the Public Interest Bar Association of DC. We would love to have you join our community and help us make sure that our legal system treats everyone fairly, regardless of money, position, or power. And with that, I will say, go and do pro bono. Happy Pro Bono Week, everyone.